As you probably know already, walking bass is really fun to play, and you'll find it in many styles of music, including jazz, blues, ska, reggae and many other styles. But you might find it hard to improvise your own walking bass lines that sound interesting, and you might just find that you're using the same old couple of kind of walking lines and you want to have some variety. So in this video I'm going to give you a formula that will help you to understand how to create your own walking bass lines and how to pick notes that sound great every time. I'm going to focus on the type of walking bass lines that you'd use for jazz tunes, but everything you learn in this lesson is transferable to walking bass in any style of music. First of all, let's talk about the rhythm of a walking bass line. Well, this is the easy bit. You've just got 4 quarter notes in each bar. Occasionally there's a bit of variety, you can put some skips and that kind of thing in, but fundamentally you're playing 4 beats in a bar. If you're playing jazz tunes, then at points everyone's going to be going mad around you. So the listener and the band really need a solid bass line. This is what they're going to grasp onto. And if you listen to a jazz tune, that's going to be the kind of rhythm that you're going to focus on, and that's going to drive the tune along. So let's draw a bar with 4 beats in it. These are quarter notes, and all we need to do is fill these in for each chord. We're going to use the chord of D-7 just to illustrate how to construct a walking bass line on this bar. Now we're going to play a root note. That's the usual note to play on beat 1. As well as establishing the groove, this 4 beats in a bar, it's the job of the bass player to really kind of outline the harmony, and we can do that by playing the root note. We've taken care of beat 1. The next important beat in the bar for a walking bass is beat 3. Okay, now we've got a few choices here, but we want to use a chord tone, so that's one of the notes from the chord. In D-7 we've got the root, which is D, the minor third, which is F, the fifth, which is A, and the minor or the flattened 7th, which is C. Kind of sounds like this. Okay, now it's more usual to use the 5th, so in this case we're going to use the A. I've written all the exercises from this lesson down on a PDF in tab and standard notation, and you can pick up that free PDF booklet by clicking the link below this video in the description. So now we've taken care of beats 1 and 3, we're using the root on beat 1 and the 5th on beat 3. So next we're going to look at beat 2, and the role of beat 2 really is to join up beats 1 and 3. We've got a few choices here. We can use the third, which in this case is F, and we get a kind of arpeggio pattern. Okay, so we've got D, F and A. Okay, so now they're our first 3 beats. We could also put the root in there, so we could play kind of 2 Ds and then A, or we could play the 5th there, D, A, or we could use the 7th, but that's a bit of a big jump, so it wouldn't sound great there. So we've now got beats 1, 2 and 3. We're playing root, 3rd and 5th, and we've got the last beat now, beat 4. This 4th beat of the bar is going to connect the root note for the next bar. Okay, so we've probably got a chord change in the next bar, and we've got a root note there, so beat 4 is very much connected to the next bar. Now another name for that root note in the next bar is the target root note. So to help with this, we're going to put a G7 in the next bar. So our next root note is going to be a G on beat 1 of bar 2. So we've got to kind of link up to that G. We've got 3 main options for beat 4. The first one is a diatonic approach note. Sounds complicated, but it's not really. A diatonic note is just a note from the scale. So we can use a note from the D scale. So in this case, we're going to G. A note above it, a diatonic approach note above it would be A, and below would be F. Okay, so we've got a choice of F or A here. Now we're already on A on beat 3, so really we could use another A, but let's use the F here. Okay, so we've got this line here. Okay, so D, F, A, F to G. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next bar. Or we could use a chromatic approach note, and that's just a half step above or below the target root note. So in this case we've got a G, so we could use a G sharp or an A flat, the same note, or we could use a G flat or an F sharp, they're the same note, okay? So we can use either side of that G. So we use the chromatic note above first, so we've got this pattern. Okay, that's a nice walking line there. That chromatic note adds a bit of tension, sounds what you'd call jazzy, okay? Or if we use the F sharp. Okay, so we've got those two options for chromatic notes. And the third option is using the fifth of the target root note. That's called the dominant approach. Okay, so our target root note is G and the fifth is D. Okay, D there or D there. Okay, so we could have this pattern. Okay, D, F, A, D, G. Okay. So there you have it. We now have a basic formula that you can use to construct walking bass lines. Now there's a few options there, but that's great because it gives you the option to have variety. Okay, each time round, each different bar, you can kind of use a slightly different choice of notes within that formula. So we've got beat 1, the root note, beat 2, the third or a scale approach note, beat 3, the fifth, or we could use the third and the seventh, beat 4, a scale, chromatic or dominant approach note. So what I suggest you do now is mess around with that D minor bar and use the formula and just plug in the different options, so you can get quite a few different walking lines just out of this formula. So try it yourself. It might be quite slow working out the intervals and the approach notes and getting your head around that first, but that would be a really good exercise. And then you could try it for another chord. Say you could do G7, you could do the whole G7 bar. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a simple chord progression, which is D minor 7 to G7 to C major 7. Now that's actually a major 2-5-1 in C, but don't worry about that too much. Just look at the progression. So I'm going to walk over the first two bars and end on the C on the third bar. So I'm just going to put some different variations in there, and I'm going to play it to a backing track so you can kind of hear how these note choices sound. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you don't have to stick religiously to the formula that I've given you. Sometimes players would use a note other than the root note on beat 1, but it's a really good idea to get to know the basics from this formula, because this is really the kind of core of walking bass line. After that you kind of break the formula a bit to add interest. If you've got two chords in a bar, it's really simple to play walking bass, because you'll play the root note on beat 1, and where the chord changes on beat 3, you'll play the root note of the new chord. So you've got beat 1 and 3 sorted already, and you just need to connect them up. And you can use chromatic notes, you can use a whole variety of notes here. So look at this chord progression. We've got D major 7 to B minor 7 to E minor 7 to A7. So that's a turnaround, okay? And don't worry too much about the chord types, just look at the first letter. So we're going to play a D on beat 1, a B on beat 3, an E on beat 1, an A on beat 3, and then a D on the next bar. Okay, so we could just join those notes up. Okay, so there's few options of notes that we can play on beats 2 and 4, but we just join it up. So in a way, when you've got a lot of chords, like a kind of bebop jazz tune, it's easier to play walking bass because there's less notes that you have to choose. Now, kind of the hardest walking bass would be when a chord stays the same for loads of bars. It's called a static chord. A tune like So What, that's actually quite difficult because you've got to just kind of come up with interesting ways to play one chord. To finish this lesson off, I'm now going to walk over that 2-5-1. So I'm going to play a bar of D minor 7, a bar of G7 and 2 bars of C major 7. I'm going to loop that round 4 times. Remember, all this is written down on the free PDF. You can get that by clicking the link below in the description. And also I'm going to play to a backing track. That's the backing track I've made up for this lesson, and you can purchase that. It's really handy to play to backing tracks to kind of put the walking bass line in context. So when you play it on its own, you can't really work out kind of how your note choices really sound and whether they work or not. So on the backing track there's loads of loops just going round and round and round, so you can try all these different ideas out. So you can get that by heading straight to gbshed.com, go to the shop there and it's under backing tracks, it's backing track 5, or I've put a handy link below in the description. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that's the end of the lesson. I hope you had fun. I hope you found it useful as well. If you're really serious about sorting out walking bass line, especially for jazz tunes, then check out my new video course, which is called Walkin Thru Jazz. There's a link below in the description, or you can see it on my website gbshed.com. Just go to video courses. Now, Walkin Thru Jazz is a deep dive into the jazz blues progressions, and we really look at how to build your walking bass lines from the ground up. And once you go through that, you should have the confidence to kind of get up at a jam night and go and play some walking bass and play to different jazz standards. There are loads more bass resources over at my website gbshed.com. You've got bass books, video courses, free PDFs, free transcriptions. You can buy t-shirts. So go and have a peruse. That's gbshed.com. And if you felt that you got value out of this lesson, then you can always buy me a $5 coffee. You can see the details at the bottom of the screen here. Or if you go to the description, there are clickable links there. You can pay by PayPal or by Stripe using your card. Don't forget to like this video, which really helps me out, and subscribe to my channel. You can do that by clicking the red subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell too. This is Greg from Greg's Bass Shed. Hopefully see you very soon in the next video lesson.